First story. I neglected and abused my 3 sons for my daughter. I allowed her to bully my sons, and all 3 boys went NC with me. My ungrateful oldest son is getting married, but didn't invite my daughter or me. I told him his wedding is invalid and won't be accepted. He didn't budge, so my daughter ruined their wedding cake with her pee. Now I'm regretting favoring her. I 54M am married to my wife 51F, and we have 4 kids. Caleb 26, Mason 25, Jace 23, and Ava 20. 3 boys and a daughter, and I'll be honest up front. We kept trying until we had a girl. It's embarrassing to admit, but Ava was the dream. My wife always said she wanted a daughter to dress up, go shopping with, and plan weddings with. I didn't stop her because, deep down, I also liked the idea of having a daddy's girl. What we didn't realize at the time or refused to admit is that this mindset poisoned everything. When Ava was born, we treated it like a prize had finally arrived. The nursery was elaborate. We had professional newborn photos. Every milestone was over-celebrated. We poured everything into her attention, money, time, and barely noticed how that shift impacted the boys. It wasn't just that she got more. It was that the boys got less, and in some cases, nothing at all. Looking back, there were some defining moments I can't stop thinking about. Caleb's 10th birthday party got cancelled last minute because Ava, then just a baby, had a fever and my wife didn't want noise and germs in the house. We said we'd reschedule. We never did. When Mason got into his high school jazz band, he had his first real concert. We left halfway through because Ava, age 6, was bored and started throwing a tantrum in the auditorium. We made him come home early to keep the peace. Jace once failed a group project in high school because we refused to drive him across town to meet his group on the weekend. Ava had dance class. That was non-negotiable. We weren't trying to hurt them. But our blind spot for Ava became a long-term pattern of choosing her needs, her moods, and her wants over theirs almost every single time. We were also a lot harsher with the boys. Any mess up, and it was yelling, punishments, and grounding. With Ava, we excused almost everything as, she's just emotional, or she's still maturing. Her tantrums were treated as sacred. The result? We raised 3 angry, bonded boys connected not just by brotherhood, but by shared resentment. They protected each other. They started making plans to move out early. They spoke less and less at dinner. Family vacations became rare because nobody could stand to be around us. And Ava, she became entitled. Not cruel, not malicious, just clueless. She didn't see the favoritism as a problem because it was all she knew. The attention was normal. The double standards were invisible to her. We finally got into therapy when Jace was 16. A school counselor contacted us because he'd written an essay about feeling outnumbered in his own family, like he was an unwanted guest. That was the wake-up call. My wife and I went through individual and couples counseling. The therapist pulled no punches. She told us flat out that we'd created a scapegoat golden child system, and it had cemented family trauma. We apologized. We asked the boys to join us for family sessions. Caleb and Mason came a few times, but never stayed long. They said the sessions felt like too little, too late. They weren't wrong. Caleb moved out and cut us off at 18. Mason left 6 months later. Both told us not to contact them. Jace stayed longer and tried to work through it. But by the time he finished high school, he was done. One day, he just stopped replying. We haven't heard from him since. And through all of this, Ava struggled to understand what happened. To her, her brothers just suddenly started hating her. We tried to explain. We told her that she wasn't personally to blame, but that the favoritism we showed had serious consequences. Ava cried. She insisted she loved her brothers. She started writing them messages apologizing, asking if they could start fresh. She never got a response. We didn't push. We gave space. We accepted the estrangement. Until recently. We found out Caleb is getting married. We didn't hear it from him. We found out through a distant cousin who posted a congratulations comment on Facebook, tagging Caleb and his fiancée. A few clicks, and we saw the engagement photo. My wife and I felt hurt, of course, but mostly, we understood. We had no reason to expect an invitation. We were never told about the relationship. We haven't spoken in years. We reminded ourselves. This is what happens when you break trust over decades. This is the cost. We told Ava not to obsess over it. We said, it's his wedding. Let's give him the space he wants. She didn't listen. She found Caleb's Instagram. It was public, and saw the engagement post. The caption read, "I couldn't choose between them. They've always had my back through everything. So I'm having both of my brothers as my best men. Mason and Jace." That line, "always had my back," broke Ava. She came to us in tears, shaking. She said it was a slap in the face, a public declaration that she wasn't family. She said he posted it knowing we'd eventually see it. She saw it as an intentional message. "You three are cut out permanently." We tried to reason with her. We told her, maybe it wasn't meant as a dig. Maybe Caleb just wanted to honor the two people he stayed closest to. Maybe we're reading too much into a celebratory post. But she was spiraling. Ava cried for days. She couldn't focus on her college finals. She stopped going to work. She told us, "I didn't do anything to deserve being erased like this." Eventually, she asked us to reach out to Caleb, just to ask why he would post something so exclusionary. We told her no. That we needed to respect the boys' boundaries. But she kept pushing. She said we were cowards, that we ruined everything, and now we're too passive to fix it. That we're just sitting back, while her whole family cuts her off. We broke. My wife and I decided to send a message, just one, to Caleb and Mason. Not asking for invites. Not pushing for anything, just, "We're sorry to intrude. We saw your announcement, and we're genuinely happy for you. We just want you to know that Ava is hurting. She saw the post and doesn't understand why she's been left out. If there's anything you want to share to help her process it, we're here to listen." That was it. No pressure. No demands. But the response we got? "We are formally uninviting all of you from our lives once again. Do not contact us. Do not speak to Ava. This is final." That was the first message we'd received from either of them in years. And Ava hasn't stopped crying since. She didn't speak to us for 3 straight days. Locked herself in her room, wouldn't answer calls or texts, and skipped her classes. She finally came out and said one thing, "You made it worse. They hate me even more now," and went silent again. My wife and I are devastated. Not just because the boys cut us off again, we expected that possibility, but because we can't fix this for Ava. And here's the truth we're wrestling with. We did this. We built a house where our sons always came second. We made it clear Ava was the center of our world. Even though she didn't ask for that treatment, she benefited from it every day. And now she's reaping the social cost we never prepared her for. She doesn't know how to process being unwanted. She grew up adored, praised, and protected. And now she's dealing with decades of resentment she didn't create, but still symbolizes. The hard part is that she genuinely loves her brothers. She's always wanted to reconnect. But she's also never taken real accountability. She keeps saying, "I was just a kid. I didn't know." That's mostly true. But she also weaponized her status more than once, even if she didn't fully understand it. A few examples we can't ignore. When she was 13, she found Jace vaping in the garage. She threatened to tell us unless he cleaned her room and gave her his PS4 controller. He did. She told us anyway. At 15, she crashed Mason's car while he was out of town. She took it without permission and sideswiped a parking barrier. We paid for the repair quietly and told Mason it was vandalized. Ava begged us not to tell him because he already hates me. We lied for her. She once told a cousin at Christmas that Caleb didn't belong in the family because he was always mad and selfish. That comment got back to him, and it was the last family holiday he ever attended. These moments weren't isolated. They were part of a pattern. Ava saw herself as the authority because that's how we treated her. Now she doesn't understand why no one wants to include her. We tried explaining to her, again, that her brothers are allowed to have boundaries. That silence doesn't mean hatred. That Caleb's wedding isn't about her. She disagrees. She believes the best man caption was public for a reason. That Caleb wanted us to see it. That it was a final, loud rejection of us, and especially her. And part of me wonders if she's right. We didn't need to be tagged to see the post. Caleb made it public. His fiancée is also public. The comment section was full of mutual friends and distant relatives. There's no way he didn't know word would get back. But even if it was meant as a statement, we can't control that now. We can only control our reactions and how we support the daughter we raised to expect inclusion from a family that no longer considers her part of the circle. Right now, she's saying things like, "I don't even want to go to their funerals. I'll just have strangers at my wedding. What's the point of family if they can just cut you out like that?" She's spiraling hard. My wife and I are trying not to panic, but it's clear we've created a daughter who has no coping tools for this kind of rejection because she was never prepared to be the outsider. We thought reaching out could give her closure. Instead, we confirmed the distance is still very real and maybe permanent. My wife now thinks we should have stayed out of it. That Caleb and Mason had made their stance clear years ago, and that by interfering, we reopened old wounds. I feel torn. I don't regret trying to help Ava, but I do regret doing it without knowing how much damage was still fresh. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe they'll never be. But is it really that awful to want to bridge that gap? To hope that Ava, even with all her flaws, might get some clarity from the brothers she once looked up to. I'm not trying to force reconciliation. I'm not begging for a seat at the wedding. I'm just trying to be a parent finally to all 4 of my kids, even if it's 20 years too late. I know we were bad parents to the boys. I know Ava's status was built on our favoritism. And I know the boys have every right to their silence. But when your daughter is drowning in guilt, sadness, and confusion, do you just watch? Or do you try one more time? So, Ada for reaching out to our sons on our daughter's behalf. Comments. Comment 1. YTA. But Ava. She's the real problem now. You say she's crying nonstop and emotionally collapsing and locking herself in her room because her estranged brother made a wedding post that didn't even mention her, and she responded by telling you to demand an explanation on her behalf, like she's some injured princess. She is a narcissist. Ava doesn't want peace, she wants to be centered in the story again. Meanwhile, the guys are finally getting something for themselves, a private moment of joy, and her response is a meltdown that drags you right back into boundary-breaking behavior. What did she expect? Oh, sorry sis, let me just ruin my own wedding vibes to comfort the person I spent 18 years resenting. Come on. And let's be real. You raised her to think her comfort is more important than anyone else's peace. That's why she's not emailing Caleb with real apologies. That's why she's still the kind of person who demands you fix it. You're not the devil. But this was a misstep. Let Ava sit in her discomfort. It's probably the first time in her life she's had to. That's how accountability starts. Soft YTA. Not for loving her, but for doing the same enabling that caused this mess in the first place. Comment 2. It sucks that Ava is facing consequences she didn't consciously choose as a kid, but she's not a child anymore. She's a grown adult who still expects to be centered in people's lives she hasn't earned access to. That doesn't come from nowhere, that comes from you. Let's be very clear. Caleb's wedding is not about Ava. Not emotionally, not symbolically, not socially. It's about him and his partner. Period. The fact that Ava saw a post celebrating his brothers and immediately framed it as a personal attack tells me everything I need to know about how she sees the world. You say she loves her brothers, but does she actually know them? Does she talk to them? Does she have any relationship with them that exists outside of her own feelings? Or does she just feel entitled to their presence because she grew up as the favored one? And you? You are still doing the same thing you claim to regret. You're centering Ava's pain and once again demanding emotional labor from the sons you failed. You call it seeking clarity. They see it for what it is. Yet another attempt to force them to prioritize her comfort over their boundaries. Go back to therapy. Seriously. Because what you described is exactly the behavior you say you're aware of and supposedly trying to stop, and yet you ran right back to it the moment Ava cried. I don't know you personally, OP, but after reading this, I want to go no contact with you too. YTA. Comment 3. Let me see if I've got this straight. Your oldest son is getting married. An event that is entirely about him and his future wife. He makes a post praising the brothers who supported him through a childhood where you didn't. And somehow, you managed to make that about yourselves and your daughter. You literally reenacted the exact behavior that made them cut you off. You didn't reach out to congratulate him. You didn't reach out to say you were proud. You didn't even ask if you could attend. No. You contacted him to guilt trip him for not including the primary symbol of his childhood neglect in his wedding party. And yes, I said symbol because whether you like it or not, that's what Ava represents to him. Once again, you validated Ava's selfish framing. Once again, you chose her feelings over your son's right to peace. Once again, you expected them to rearrange their lives to make her feel better. Ask yourself this. If the situation were reversed, if Caleb had thrown a fit about not being involved in Ava's wedding after years of estrangement, what would you tell him? You know the answer. And you're ashamed of it. That shame is exactly why you're disinvited. YTA. This entire post isn't about losing your sons. It's about your princess being upset. You didn't reach out because you missed them, you reached out because her feelings got bruised. And somehow, you still don't see it. Update. Well, I didn't expect the post to get so much attention. I didn't respond to comments because most of them were what I knew they'd be. I get it. I said in the post that we failed as parents. I meant it. But I wanted to post an update because, while I believe the worst was behind us, things have unfolded in ways I didn't anticipate. Not because I think we were right, I'm not here to argue that, but because I think people should understand what the fallout looks like when you raise a child to be emotionally dependent on validation that no longer exists. After our sons shut the door on us again, Ava fell apart. I mentioned she locked herself in her room and stopped eating. That was just the beginning. The crying spells came daily. Her schoolwork tanked, she skipped an exam entirely. She said she didn't see the point in finishing the semester. She told us she felt erased, like a person who never existed. We tried to be there for her. I told her we could go back to therapy, just us this time, to help her work through this. She agreed, reluctantly. But even the therapist said she wasn't ready to actually engage. She was showing up just to repeat how victimized she felt, not to make sense of how it got this far. She started blaming everyone. Not just her brothers, their friends, our extended family, even Caleb's fiancé, whom she's never met. Ava got it in her head that the fiancé is manipulating Caleb, making sure we all stay cut off, and spreading false stories about our family to justify excluding us. There's no evidence of this, it's entirely speculation, but she fixated on it. Around that time, Ava made a TikTok post. We didn't see it until a younger cousin sent us a screenshot. She filmed herself crying in her room with a sad piano track and captioned it. When your brothers cut you off, and you still hope they'll love you again someday. It went semi-viral on that corner of TikTok. She didn't name anyone directly, but the comments were full of strangers consoling her, calling her brothers heartless, and telling her she deserved better. She fed off that attention. For days, it was the only thing lifting her spirits. Then some family members saw it, including the cousin whose FB post originally revealed the engagement to us. They weren't supportive. Several messaged her saying it was inappropriate and one-sided. One told her, "You need to stop acting like this is about you." That sent her back into another spiral. I tried doing what I thought was right. I emailed all 3 boys again. Yes, I know people will say I shouldn't have, and I offered to pay for family therapy. I said they didn't have to see us. Just a third party, on their terms, no pressure. I got no reply. Not even a rejection. Meanwhile, Ava started making plans for a housewarming party. She told us she wanted to move out and said she needed to be in her own space to grow. I said I respected that, but she doesn't have a job stable enough to afford a place. She told me not to worry. Turns out she used part of a trust fund from my late father, which wasn't meant to be touched until 25, and applied for a mortgage anyway. She needed a co-signer. My wife and I said no. She broke down crying and said, "You let them leave. You let them forget me. And now you won't even help me get out of here." She never actually bought the house. But she started texting and inviting people to a housewarming party anyway, and here's the kicker, she scheduled it for the same day as Caleb's wedding. The exact same time slot. She didn't even deny it. She said it was a test to see who in the family would choose her. Most either declined or flat out told her it was petty. One uncle said she was acting 12. A family friend said she was sabotaging herself. She got maybe 2 soft maybes and several ignored texts. That night, she sat at the kitchen table and told us she was going to fix this herself. She was done being polite. She somehow got the contact info for Caleb's fiancé's parents. I still don't know how she might have pulled it from an old family contact list or social media trail. She said she wanted to set the record straight, to tell them what kind of person they're giving their daughter to. She said Caleb was a cold, manipulative narcissist, that he used to throw things when he got mad, and that our family enabled emotional abuse for decades. She planned to tell them her brothers were cruel and abusive to her, and had completely fabricated their version of events. I told her absolutely not. I said she had no right to do that this wasn't her fight, that it was Caleb's wedding, not hers. She screamed at me, said I never protect her, that I'm scared of my sons, and I always choose them now. I took her phone away for the night. She got it back the next morning. I don't know if she made those calls. I hope not. But I can't say for sure. My wife and I are stuck. We know we caused this. But we also feel like we're watching our daughter emotionally unravel in real time. She's acting out in increasingly desperate ways, And no matter how many times we try to calm her down or redirect her, it's not working. And I know people will say, this is karma. This is what happens when you raise a golden child and never teach them how to deal with rejection. But what are we supposed to do now? Ignore her? Let her self-destruct? We failed our sons. We admit that. But they are living their lives. They have each other. They made it out. Ava didn't. She's drowning in shame, guilt, confusion, and isolation. She says she doesn't want to be alive, sometimes not that she has a plan, but that she doesn't see the point if nobody wants her. She's 20, and her entire identity is tied to a family that doesn't want to look at her. I know she's crossing lines. I don't defend the tactics. I've told her to stop. But what I can't do is abandon her. Not after everything. Not now. So yeah, maybe I'm still enabling her. Maybe I haven't changed enough. Maybe I'll never be the father my sons needed. But I'm trying to be the father my daughter needs now, even if it's ugly. Even if people hate me for it. That's the update. I won't be reaching out to the boys again. I've said everything I can say. But I don't know what happens next with Ava. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. Comments. Comment 1. I work in events. I've seen families implode over weddings. This is one of the worst trajectories I've seen before the actual wedding even happens. If Ava contacts the fiancé or her parents, or shows up anywhere near that wedding, here's what's going to happen, and I'm not speculating. Security will be notified. Your sons will document everything. You will never hear from them again. Ava will permanently brand herself as unstable to a whole extended social network. You keep saying, I can't stop her. Yes, you can. You just don't want to, because stopping her would mean admitting she's not just hurting, she's acting out abusively. Your sons are not bringing this on themselves. They set boundaries. Ava is repeatedly trying to bulldoze them. You're standing behind her saying, please understand why she's doing this, instead of saying, stop. This ends now. You want to know why they cut you off. Because even now, in this update, you still frame everything around Ava's pain while treating their wedding like a provocation. It's not. This is their life. And you are about to lose any remaining chance of peace if you don't stop this today. YTA, and you're dangerously close to being the reason lawyers get involved. Comment 2. Look, I get it. You see your daughter falling apart, and you're scared. Any decent parent would be. But you're not just reacting to her pain, you're being manipulated by it. And that distinction matters. Ava has learned that tears equal sign action. She sobs, and you email your sons. She spirals, and you offer therapy for them. She tests family loyalty with a fake party, and instead of drawing a boundary, you explain it away as emotional distress. I'm not saying she's faking it. I'm saying this is her only toolkit. And you're reinforcing it. Every time. The most chilling line in this entire post was, I don't know if she called the fiancé's parents. I hope not. That's not what you say when someone's grieving. That's what you say when someone is unstable and capable of burning bridges you'll never rebuild. You want to help her. Give her a call. A limit. Something solid to hit, so she learns where her pain ends and other people's lives begin. Because right now, she doesn't see that line, and neither do you. YTA. And if you're not careful, Ava's story won't end with sadness, it'll end with humiliation, regret, and total social collapse. And she'll blame everyone but herself. Starting with you. Comment 3. Every decision you describe, from the second outreach to offering therapy to your sons, not Ava to narrating her breakdowns like she's some tragic hero in it, all screams that you still view her pain as the only pain that matters. You say your sons have each other like it's a luxury. It's survival. They have each other because they had no one else. Because you taught them early that your attention was conditional and always belonged to someone else first. Ava is not being abandoned. She is being rejected by people she emotionally harmed and never truly apologized to. She didn't reach out with honesty or growth. She tried a PR campaign, TikTok, a guilt campaign party, and now she's going full on scorched earth, trying to contact in-laws and sabotage a wedding. And your biggest mistake isn't that you still love her, it's that you keep confusing love with rescuing. She doesn't need rescuing. She needs reality. YTA. And until you stop twisting the narrative to make her the center of their story, you will keep being one. Update. I didn't think I'd be back here. I told myself I'd stop posting and just deal with things privately. That didn't happen. What happened instead was worse than anything I imagined. And I need to put it out because I don't think I can keep pretending this is just family conflict anymore. The wedding happened. We were not invited. That was clear. I told Ava we would not go anywhere near it. I believed she understood. I was wrong. Caleb and his wife got married out of state. We knew the venue only because Ava had been obsessively tracking public posts and tagged vendors. The night before the wedding, Ava said she was going for a drive to clear her head. I didn't think much of it. I should have. The next call I got was from an unknown number the following afternoon. It was local law enforcement. Ava had shown up at the wedding venue. She wasn't dressed to blend in. She wore a bright dress that stood out in every photo I later saw. She didn't try to sit quietly or pretend she belonged. She walked straight towards the reception area. According to the event staff and the incident report we were later given, she made it as far as the cake table. She had something in her bag, a container with a yellow liquid. I'm not going to spell it out, but it wasn't hard to figure out what she intended. She later claimed she was just holding it and hadn't decided what she was going to do yet. The staff didn't buy that. She was stopped before she could touch anything. Someone recognized her. Security intervened immediately. Voices were raised. The bride was escorted out of the room in tears. The ceremony was already over, but the reception halted completely. Authorities were called. Ava was questioned on site like a criminal. She was searched. The container was confiscated. She was removed from the venue in front of guests. Caleb did not speak to her. Mason and Jace did not speak to her. None of them acknowledged her presence at all. She was formally trespassed from the property. We drove several hours to get her. She was shaking, furious, and humiliated, alternating between sobbing and yelling that they deserved it, and that this is what happens when you erase someone. She kept insisting that if she'd been allowed to talk, everything would have calmed down. That night, we learned the first set of consequences. The venue filed an incident report. The wedding planner documented everything. The bride's family requested charges be considered. Ultimately, Ava was not arrested that day, but she was issued a citation for trespassing and disorderly conduct. We were told plainly that if the liquid had made contact with property or people, this would have escalated immediately. 2 days later, we received a cease and desist letter. Not just for Ava, for us. It stated that neither Ava nor we were to attempt contact with Caleb, his wife, or their families again. It referenced the wedding incident explicitly. It advised that further attempts would be treated as harassment. That letter broke something in me. Not because it was unfair. Because it was final. Extended family did not rally around Ava the way she expected. The opposite happened. A few relatives reached out to us to say they were disturbed. One aunt said she would no longer attend any event Ava was at. Another told me, bluntly, that Ava scared people. Some family members blocked her outright after seeing clips of the wedding disruption circulate privately. No one posted it publicly, but it spread fast enough. Ava lost her job the following week. She'd already missed shifts during the lead-up to the wedding. After the incident, her manager told her they were going in a different direction. She insists it's discrimination. It isn't. She was unreliable and volatile. Her school situation followed. She failed 2 courses due to absences and incomplete work. She is now on academic probation. Financial aid is in question. After the mortgage attempt, and now this, the trustee of her trust fund stepped in. Access has been frozen. Not temporarily, indefinitely. The trustee cited demonstrated financial impulsivity and legal risk. Ava sees this as betrayal. I see it as inevitable. The worst moment came a week later. Ava told my wife that she didn't see the point of being alive if no one wanted her. We contacted her therapist. We were advised to monitor closely and remove access to anything that could be used to hurt herself. And here is where I need to be honest in a way I haven't been before. I used that statement to justify everything. I told myself that nothing she did mattered compared to keeping her alive. That consequence could wait. That boundaries could wait. That accountability could wait. I told myself my sons pushed her to this by cutting her off. That belief didn't survive the paperwork. When you read your child's name on a legal document next to words like trespass, harassment, and future enforcement, it becomes harder to pretend this is just pain expressing itself. Caleb and his wife have not contacted us. They don't need to. Their silence is complete and absolute. Ava now blames us for not stopping her. She says we should have physically prevented her from going. She says we failed her again. She also insists that if she'd been allowed to speak to the bride's parents, everything would have been resolved. I no longer believe that. What I regret most isn't just how we raised her. It's that I kept telling myself I was choosing between my children when, in reality, I had already lost all of them. The boys are gone. That was years ago. Ava is still here. But she no longer trusts us either. She sees us as ineffective, weak, and unable to give her what she believes she deserves. And maybe she's right, because what she wants isn't support. It's validation without limits. If I could go back, I would have drawn hard lines earlier. Not at the wedding. Years earlier. Before entitlement turned into desperation. Before desperation turned into something that required lawyers and police reports. I don't know what comes next. Ava is living with us. She has no job, no school certainty, no access to her trust, and a growing list of people who want nothing to do with her. I don't think she's a bad person. I think she was raised to believe love meant priority. And she's learned too late that the world doesn't work that way. This is the final update. There's nothing left to fix. I wanted to save one child after losing 3. Instead, I taught her how to burn everything down when she felt left behind. Comments. Comment 1. This is what happens when someone spends their entire life being told they are the center of gravity, only to find out, abruptly, that they were never even in orbit for some people. Ava is lashing out like a person trying to prove they exist. The cake, the piss jar we all know, the threats, the party, it's not just petty. It's existential. You spent 20 years telling her she mattered more than everyone else, and now she doesn't matter at all to the only people who ever challenged that story. The tragedy. You knew the other 3 were gone. You said it yourself. But you couldn't bear to lose the last one. So instead of helping her stand on her own, you propped her up with lies. And now even she doesn't trust you. This isn't just estrangement. It's the death of the family myth. And it's not Ava who brought it down, it was already rotting. She just picked up the match. YTA. But I don't even think that label matters anymore. This is beyond judgment. It's grief in slow motion. Comment 2. OP, I'm not saying this to be dramatic, but your daughter is exhibiting serious signs of psychological instability. Showing up uninvited to a wedding with a biohazard in a container, attempting to destroy property, isolating from schoolwork, and fixating on a narrative correction. This isn't just entitlement. This is delusional thinking, escalating obsessive behavior, and potentially even paranoid ideation. She is not okay. And no, this didn't come out of nowhere. You built this. Slowly. For 2 decades. Every time, you made her feel like she owed people's attention. Every time you explained away her behavior instead of correcting it. Every time you told her pain was the same thing as injustice. Now she can't regulate anything. Emotions, boundaries, consequences, or reality. She doesn't need comfort. She needs immediate psychiatric intervention. Clinical help. Possibly inpatient, given the recent events. Stop narrating this like a sad family drama. This is a mental health emergency in slow motion. And if you wait any longer, the next incident won't be recoverable. YTA. And it's time to act like a parent finally. Comment 3. Your daughter is effing unhinged, dude. This isn't some hurting girl acting out. This is a woman who brought a piss-filled container to a goddamn wedding and tried to destroy a cake because someone had the audacity to not include her. And let's be crystal clear. You made her like this. You fed her ego every time she cried. You bulldozed consequences so she'd never feel discomfort. You handed her power over her brothers and called it parenting. Now you're standing in the ashes pretending you're confused about how the fire started. She needs help. But you need to back the hell off and stop playing both victim and savior. She is dangerous now. You may not want to see that, but other people do. That's why the venue filed reports. That's why you got legal letters. That's why even your extended family wants nothing to do with her. If she wasn't your daughter, and you saw this same story from the outside, you'd be scared of her too. YTA, deeply. And if you don't get her help soon, her name's going to show up in a police report, not as the victim. Second story. My friends and my mum begged me not to date a cop. I brushed them off. Now I'm regretting not listening to them and dating a cop. My fiancé and I have been together for almost 4 years. He's a homicide detective. My friends immediately started side-eyeing me. They said, "Don't date a cop. It's not worth it. They're all abusive, etc." None of them have ever actually dated a cop, so I found their opinions more annoying than anything else. I just felt like they were basing their judgment on a stereotype. My mum said similar things, but she dated a cop who was former military with PTSD like 49 years ago and based everything off that. Lately though, a few things have started to bother me. I don't know if it's just that these incidents seem to be more frequent, or if I was just willfully blind to it before. I'm just bothered by these things now. He records our arguments. I've known about that for a while. He told me it was to make sure we remember things correctly and communicate better. And I believed him at first. I didn't like it. And I thought it was petty and stupid. I asked him if he saved the recordings, and he said he deletes them once the argument is resolved. I've since found a folder on his computer labeled with dates and times, and they're recordings of arguments or other conversations we've had going back over a year. He notices tiny changes in my behavior and asks questions in a way that feels more like an interrogation than concern. I also recently discovered he's done background checks on some of my friends and coworkers. Sometimes his phone buzzes and he steps out for hours without explanation, but he just says he's handling work stuff whenever I ask. He makes cryptic comments like, "You know I only trust what I can verify," or "I like to know everything that might matter when it comes to things between us, not strictly talking about work." Then he laughs it off, but the words stick. It's hard to tell when he's joking and when he's serious. I love him, but it's like sometimes I feel like he's treating me like I'm some sort of suspect. He doesn't seem to trust anyone, including me. Every little disagreement feels like it could be evidence. Recently, he's made some comments related to having kids, about having a tracker on them at all times, and never letting them spend the night at friends' houses. This came after I told him that people at work were saying their kids don't have sleepovers like we used to have. He said he'll never let his kids spend the night at somebody else's house, and that he'll do background checks on every parent of our kids' friends and teachers. I feel like these sorts of comments are becoming more frequent, and it's just escalating. How do I handle this with him? How do I discuss this in a way that won't just turn into a dumb argument that he inevitably records for no good reason? I honestly don't know how to bring this up to him. I've considered telling him he needs therapy because he cannot continue to live life so suspicious and paranoid about everything and everyone. I'm pretty sure he'll refuse that. Comments. Comment 1. Is this how you want to live the rest of your life? Comment 2. I could barely take it for the length of the post. The rest of her life makes me feel like I'm vicariously suffocating. Comment 3. Oh boy, did your fiancé date my aunt? Because your story sounds really familiar. Only her cop BF was separated from his wife. And when he refused to actually divorce his wife, because he didn't want his ex marrying her new BF, my aunt broke up with him. And then it got really bad. She had to leave the state because his harassment afterwards was so scary. And no cop would back her up because they were all his buddies. She only got out because she went around and asked the neighbors to please point their cameras at her house in case he murdered her. And he found a new young girl to obsess over. So yeah, I'm not saying I would never date a cop, but I would have ended the relationship the first time he tried to record our arguments. That is a sign of a much bigger problem that you are only just now starting to realize. I get why he is paranoid. He sees the worst of people, but you are his partner. If he can't trust you, then there is no point in being his partner. It doesn't get better. It only gets worse. For the love of God, don't have his ex with him if you are thinking of leaving. My aunt's ex got her pregnant because he tampered with her BC, and if she hadn't miscarried from the effing stress, she would have been stuck with him in her life. Be careful. Comment 4. 51F here and a lawyer. Everyone always says we love to argue. Life would be pretty miserable for everyone around us if we didn't turn that off outside work. What I do is just part of my job. That's not what he's doing. This is who he is. Turn things around. Instead of thinking, well, he's just like this because his job made him this way, what if maybe he chose this profession because it gives him a socially acceptable way to exert control and power over others? This is a profession that attracts abusive people. And he is one. Period. Update. I think a good starting point would be for me to admit that I do believe my fiancé is a good man. He's not cruel, he's not an aggressive or violent man, and he believes with all his heart that he's right most of the time. Of course, I realize a lot of people were pretty negative in their comments towards me in response to my original post, and part of me wants to thank you all for your concern. But another part of me wonders if part of this negative response is simply because of the nature of his work. After sitting on all of this for a few days, I decided I couldn't put off this conversation anymore. I told him that we have to talk, and this isn't about winning an argument. I began with the recordings. I told him I knew he had been stockpiling arguments with our friends going all the way back a year ago, and how it makes me feel violated and threatened. He did not deny this. He explained to me why he holds them. In case things ever get twisted, and protecting himself. To hear my fiancé speak of our relationship in a way that implies he considers our life a potential lawsuit threatened me. When I mentioned this style of questioning me and observing small shifts in my behavior, he explained that this is simply how his brain works, and that, given all he's observed in his work, he can't simply shut it off. He explained to me that pointing out details doesn't mean he believes I am doing anything incorrect, simply that he likes to verify rather than assume. He told me most detectives' girlfriends simply get used to it, leaving me to wonder if this is a common fact or simply a defense people make when they're in fact engaging in poor behavior. The background checks on my friends and colleagues escalated into a bigger problem. He confessed to doing them and stated definitely he would do the same to people in relation to our future children. He did not think it was an invasion of privacy, but being informed. Those people with nothing to hide did not need to worry. The talk about children was most sobering. He doubled down on trackers, no sleepovers, and careful screening of every adult in their lives. When I called this controlling, he said, "Healthy doesn't matter if they're safe." That phrase has stuck in my head since. I asked him if he trusted me. He paused for a very long time before answering me. He finally said that he trusts me as much as he trusts anyone else. I think he did not realize how very unnerving this answer was. I just want to know where his limits are. I asked him what would happen if we broke up. He said he would never do anything illegal, but that he thinks a man must take care of himself all the time. What's that even supposed to mean? I've asked for some space, and am currently staying with family. He didn't appear angry, and I really thought he would get an attitude about it and accuse me of being dramatic. He acted very coldly and matter-of-fact about it. While I am not putting an end to our engagement just yet, I'm definitely considering everything. As much as I love him and think he genuinely wants to do good in our relationship, I don't want a life where I am observed, recorded, and assessed, rather than being in a relationship where I have someone's support. Moreover, I don't think I can raise children with a man who prioritizes control over trust. Comments. Comment 1. It's illegal for him to be running background reports on random people. He's abusing his position. Comment 2. Yeah, I had to run background checks for people when I worked at Child Protective Services. A couple of us were trained to use the system. We were told that we could face prison time if we didn't have a reason to look someone up. There had to be a paper trail and a reason for the inquiry. Comment 3. Yeah, exactly this. Those systems are locked down for a reason, and you don't just casually look people up without a legit case or paper trail. Hearing that makes the whole just being informed excuse sound way less normal tbh. Comment 4. He's on a major power trip, and he has no intention of changing. Think real hard. This is the rest of your life. Just think how messed up his kids are going to be, growing up in that environment. You can save your kids from that future. I am legit scared for you. Please be safe. Comment 5. Yes, he's actually proud of his illegal actions, running these checks. He likes the power over people. OP. This I can agree with. Comment 6. Dude is flat out telling you he's gathering evidence to destroy your life if he doesn't like something, and you're still considering whether to marry him. He's a cop. He's got an entire department, plus prosecutors, lawyers, and judges in his sphere of influence. He has the ability to harass you and have his colleagues harass you in perpetuity. And he's already shown you he's controlling and has no boundaries. Please end this. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.